Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Columbus of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. Three Martinis coming up.
Hey, really glad you're with us for the Monday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. We hope you had a fantastic weekend. We've got good, kind of a mixed good martini as we talk about the EU-U.S. trade deal. The good news is improving crime rates in a couple of deep blue cities, and it's not exactly a mystery as to why that's the case. And then we heard last year during the campaigns a lot of chatter about the crazy cat ladies, Jim. I'm not going to cast aspersions on all cat owners, but we've got one who definitely fits the bill in the Pacific Northwest. So I also just want to note, we talked about Colbert a couple of times last week, and as is usually my pattern, I was watching golf on CBS on yesterday afternoon, and they go to the breaks and like, this week on The Late Show, Liam Neeson, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Senator Alyssa Slotkin. And I'm like, two of those I'd be slightly interested in listening to. I know which one I'm not going to tune in for.
Liam Neeson has a particular set of skills, which is being now absolutely hilarious, at least in the clips of Naked Gun. So I know what he brings to the table. But when you're doing Alyssa Slotkin, you're not even doing the big name Democratic senators anymore. It's kind of like, who's left in the caucus? Tina Smith, you're up. Come on, let's go. Last chance for everybody to get in there. By the way, the fact that Colbert, since the announcement that The Late Show would be ending in May, has basically chosen to turn his show into an hour-long diatribe of how much CBS executives suck. And also even more partisan, even less funny, even more this, primal scream. So if you're a CBS News executive, sure you want this thing on till May?
He's begging to get fired.
Right?
He's begging to get fired.
He clearly wants to get fired so he can say, Trump did it. Oh, by the way, for those of us arguing, there's probably something to do with the fact that they're losing $40 million a year on the show. Trump going on to Truth Social and saying, it was me. They did it because of me, is probably not helping any. That, for our argument that this was not a matter of political intimidation. When Trump's running around taking a victory lap saying, it is totally political intimidation. I intimidate them. They're scared of me. That's not helping, Mr. President.
The mob of 20 people who showed up for the Save the Late Show rally probably didn't exactly scare Paramount or CBS or
Greg, the GIF, there are dozens of us. Now. The GIF, there are dozens. They're not even a dozens. There's
dozen plus.
A dozen and a few more of us. That's how many there are.
It's not even enough to block the sidewalk, really. Look, if you're going to spend weeks and months complaining about the people who are ending your time on the show, there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. Conan O'Brien did it the right way, and he had a much bigger argument than Stephen Colbert has.
Including segments in untranslated Spanish, by the way, which I thought was,
All right.
That's an argument for bilingualism. Otherwise, you won't get the jokes that Conan O'Brien wants to slip past the NBC executives. So.
All right. Well, let's get to our big good martini here, because I'll tell you, this has not been trending well for the most part until recently. Baltimore, Maryland. It has not been a very safe place lately. Pretty much going all the way back to the 2015, decade ago now.
Freddie Gray.
Riots in the Freddie Gray case. And of course, we had the infamous quote from Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake, "We gave those who wish to destroy space to do so." That's leadership. And then, of course, you had the state's attorney, Marilyn Mosby, who was basically elected in that same year, 2015, on a progressive platform of, quote, refusing to prosecute low-level crimes while aggressively charging police officers, including those involved in the death of Freddie Gray. This is from the Free Beacon and Andrew Kerr. But Mosby's actions and policies went way beyond the riots of 2015. In July of 2022, Baltimore voters had finally had enough of these soaring crime rates and murder rates. Marilyn Mosby lost her primary election to her Democratic challenger, Ivan Bates, who pledged to reverse her progressive non-prosecution policies and put in place harsher penalties for repeat violent offenses and illegal gun possession. So here are the numbers. In 2022, Mosby's last year in office, Baltimore saw 334 homicides across the city. The next year, under Bates's watch, that number dropped to 262. In 2024, it dropped further to 202. And during the first half of 2025, Baltimore saw just 68 homicides, a 62% drop from the same time frame in 2022. Auto thefts are also down 34%, robberies 22%, arson down 10%. Now, you know it's bad when they have to write, there's only 68 homicides in the place where you live this year. That's still not great, but it's obviously headed in the right direction. And the reason is because this guy said, you know what? I'm actually going to prosecute criminals. And guess what? Crime went down.
Yeah, well, first of all, Greg, 68 murders so far this year. That's like 10 a month. Your odds of living in Baltimore and not being murdered are really great. They're significantly better than they were just a little while ago. Taking my tongue out of my cheek, like, this is wonderful to hear. And it kind of gets down to the question of, like, why do people like you and me and all of our listeners care about politics? Well, we genuinely believe that if you change the policies, you get different outcomes. If you have better policies, you get better outcomes. Now, are there mitigating factors that can is there no individual elected official has total power over what happens in their jurisdiction? So, something like COVID comes along and you have wide-reaching social effects of that. Yeah, maybe crime's going to go up because of that. If you have the George Floyd riots, that can exacerbate economic recessions. Yes, there are outside factors that can affect crime rates. But how do you prosecute crime? Who do you choose to prosecute? How long do they get sentenced? What is the deterrent effect of these kinds of threats of long sentences and behind bars? Those are we believe that has a actual significant effect. And lo and behold, here is the proof right here. And it's wonderful to see. Baltimore went through some really rough times for a really long stretch. And it's sad because they're, having visited there a bunch of times, there's more to it than The Wire. There's more to it than Camden Yards. There's more, there's actually there are nice neighborhoods in Baltimore. There's, Johns Hopkins University. There's all kinds of nice, and this sense of this place is ungovernable and there's nothing that can be done. Look, you want to get people to move out of your city. That's how you do it. That's, this sense that, yes, you are beset by criminals and you are beset by a city government that is just not going to take its duties seriously in this area. Just want also to throw out kind of the surprising news. I saw this in the Wall Street Journal a couple of weeks ago and kind of meaning to mention this. New York City had the lowest number of shootings and murders in recorded history and set the record for the lowest number of shootings and murders in May of this year, right? But the lowest was from January 2025 to May 2025. Now, I get it if you're watching this and you're cynical and you really don't think things could possibly have gotten better under Eric Adams. Your attitude is, well, of course there are fewer murders and shootings. They're running out of people. But that's not the case. It is not total depopulation of New York City. Probably too late to do Eric Adams that much good, but at least so far in this big start of this year, crime rates have declined. I've heard people crediting it to a new police commissioner. I've told it to the fact that, after a couple of years of foot dragging, the NYPD is finally allowed to actually start enforcing the laws. It is interesting that, this is happening and that Eric Adams, former cop, does not appear really capable of getting much credit for it. Certainly, not, in the polling so far in the mayoral race. He's running for re-election as an independent. It's very conceivable they'll make some progress on this and then elect Zohran Mamdani and end up with the guy who's like, what's the point of incarceration? Doesn't it just make people feel good? That. I can't think of a better way to ruin the progress that New York City has been making than to put Mamdani in there. So good luck, New York.
Yeah, that's a serious point, because as you've mentioned with the much better protection of the U.S. border now, people are focused on it less, and so other issues become more urgent, and that's possibly going to benefit Mamdani. And then, as you mentioned, if he actually gets in there, this is all going to unravel. All right, let's talk about open phone. If you're running a business, you know that every time you miss a call, you're leaving money on the table, and when every customer conversation really matters, you've got to have a phone system that keeps up and helps you stay connected. And that's why you need Open Phone.
Open Phone is the #1 business phone system that streamlines and scales your customer communications. It works through an app on your phone or computer, so you don't have to carry around 2 phones or use a landline. With Open Phone, your team can share one number and collaborate on customer calls and texts like a shared inbox. That way, any teammate can pick up right where the last person left off, keeping response times faster than ever.
See why more than 50,000 businesses trust Open Phone to manage their businesses' calls and texts. Open Phone is now offering 3 Martini Lunch listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/3ML. That's openphone.com/3ML. And if you have existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. All right, Jim, on to our mixed martini. A lot of folks breathing a sigh of relief today, as yesterday in Turnberry, Scotland, President Trump at his golf club meeting with Ursula von der Leyen. She's the president of the European Commission, and he announced that they've got a deal. They've got a deal on a new trade agreement between the U.S. and the EU just days before that August 1st deadline.
So we're going to do the following. The European Union is going to agree to purchase from the United States $750 billion worth of energy. $750 billion worth of energy. They are going to agree to invest into the United States $600 billion more than they're investing already. So they're investing a large amount of money. You know what that amount of money is. It's very substantial, but they're going to invest an additional $600 billion. They're agreeing to open up their countries to trade at zero tariff. So that's a very big factor. Opening up their countries, all of the countries will be opened up to trade with the United States at zero tariff. And they're agreeing to purchase a vast amount of military equipment. We don't know what that number is, but it's the good news is we make the best military equipment in the world, so sort of you have to do that, I mean.
So he goes off on a little bit of a tangent about that. So, Jim, looking at the reaction in some of the more economic-based publications, you've got some saying, man, the EU took Trump to the cleaners. And then on the other one, it'll be, oh, Trump rolled the EU. And it's not a major pro-Trump organization and a media entity. So I guess the main question is how does this stack up to whatever our arrangement was leading into this? And obviously the good news here is that we're not going to head into chaos come the beginning of next month.
Yeah, I'd characterize this as more of a sigh of relief martini than an all-out good martini. And today's Morning Jolt was all about that. I should point out, when something like this happens, the first thing I do is go to Roll Call, has this thing called Fact Base, where they transcribe all the president's remarks. So I actually read what the president says. And the first thing you notice is that what Trump said about the deal and what European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said doesn't totally line up, which is not exactly reassuring. Also, the Wall Street Journal had pointed out how there are several details that need to be revealed or released about the U.S.-UK trade deal, the U.S.-Japan trade deal, and the U.S.-South Korea. So I don't know about you, Greg. If I was in trade negotiations, I would write things down as I was negotiating them. I think that'd be very useful. So you can then release all that and not have to, try to do this based on parsing the remarks of the two different leaders during that. When he says that he said no tariffs on EU goods. Well, let's point out, first of all, this 15% tariff that is going to be in place because of this, I'm not a fan of it. It's significantly higher than tariffs were before the Trump presidency. That said, August 1st, we were looking at a 30% tariff on all goods from the EU, which would have been significantly worse. Now, when I say it's on most exports, according to von der Leyen, this is not going to have a 15% tariff on, quote, aircraft component parts, certain chemicals, certain generics, semiconductor equipment, certain agricultural products, natural resources, and critical raw materials, and we will keep working to add more products to this list, unquote. Now, Greg, I don't know about you. That sounds like a lot of exceptions. When you say certain chemicals, certain generic, how many chemicals are we talking about? How many generic medicines are we talking about? Certain agricultural products. Well, there's a lot of stuff we send back and forth to us. So it's kind of, a lot of this is TBD. I also was struck during those remarks where Trump said, we have the opening up of all the European countries, which I think I could say were essentially closed. So I looked it up, 2024, most recent year, we have complete numbers. The U.S. sent $370 billion worth of goods to the European Union, and then there's another $277 billion in services, business consulting, banking, stuff like that. So you add that up, that's $647 billion. That's a very curious definition of essentially closed market if we're selling them $647 billion worth of goods and services. That said, on Friday, August 1st, we were looking at that's apparently when the extension for all of these tariffs is supposed to run out. So it is good that we have this deal. If you're a free trader, you don't love it, but you prefer the stability. You hope that the president, wants to keep it this way for the foreseeable future. Tariff revenue will go up. That's no doubt about it. But as we've talked about in this podcast many times, consumers are going to pay for this one way or another. The products coming over from Europe are going to be more expensive. So all in all, this could have been much worse. I also kind of feel like it's hard to evaluate these deals when we only get kind of the broad outline of them. And it is kind of surprising that we haven't had subsequent big deals, more details laid out about the Philippine deal, the Japan deal. I said South Korea earlier, I meant Philippines, and the United Kingdom.
Yeah, well, he's meeting with Keir Starmer today. I don't know if we're going to get more details on that particular deal that was signed at the White House a while back, but China's the big one that's still outstanding. See what comes from that. Obviously, the harshest tariffs so far have been aimed at China. Jim, as the father of young girls, any negotiation with someone named Ursula makes me nervous because you could end up losing your voice, and then your dad has to come in there and get turned into whatever King Triton was turned into to save his daughter, and that was a whole big mess. So this seems like a better negotiation than what happened in The Little Mermaid, I will have to say. Now, the other thing that happened today, as Trump was waiting for Keir Starmer, is we got the news that after 5 days of fighting, Thailand and Cambodia have agreed to an unconditional ceasefire. And Trump says this is now the 6th conflict that he has played at least some role in ending. He says he's averaging 1 per month. And he basically said it comes down to trade. And he says, I don't want to trade with anybody that's killing each other. And that's what I've told these two countries. And so we'll find out, I guess, in due time how big of a factor that is. But it's obvious that this is a key part of Trump's foreign policy. We saw it with the Abraham Accords. We see it with other things he's trying to do in the Middle East and elsewhere around the world, where his general philosophy is, you know, I could sit here at this table forever and try to help you guys not hate each other anymore. But instead of that, how about we all get filthy rich? And in some cases, it definitely seems to be working.
It does. Now, for the Thailand and Cambodia conflict, I read about this in the Wall Street Journal last weekend, because I'd seen the headlines, but I didn't know what was actually driving the conflict. Very short version, and I'm not going to do it justice here. The Shinawatra family in Thailand and the Cambodia's Hun clan basically, as I say, have dominated the politics of their respective countries. And it really does feel like it is a personal dispute, almost a Hatfield and McCoy type situation between these two powerful and influential families in the two countries. If it's dying down, fantastic. This is a role, but by the way, for everyone who says, oh, the U.S., people, you neocons want the U.S. to intervene everywhere. Nobody wanted the U.S. to intervene in this fight. This was between two countries we had relatively good relations with, and we'd rather see them not trying to kill each other. So if it has worked out, kudos, Mr. President. Glad to hear it. But yeah, sometimes these things flare up and there really is no U.S. angle to them. Just good to see that the U.S. could play a role in ameliorating the conflict.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be honest, until I heard that it was resolved, I didn't even know these two were fighting. But that's...
It's like a lot of marriages, Greg, you know?
All right, brand new sponsor today, and it is OneSkin. We're not overly concerned with aesthetics here on the 3 Martini Lunch, but we do want to keep skin as healthy as we can as we get older. And we've talked in recent ads about products specifically made for men. Well, OneSkin is made by a team of women cosmetics experts, and OneSkin will actually help your skin feel and behave younger as you age.
After testing the effectiveness of more than 900 so-called anti-aging peptides, they developed the OS01 peptide, the first ingredient that reverses a skin's biological age by reducing the accumulation of senescent cells, a key driver of skin aging. We looked up, senescent means aging, means getting older, particularly at the cellular level. OS01 works at the cellular level to improve key aging biomarkers. OneSkin believes the purpose of skincare is not just to improve how you look, but to optimize your skin's biology at the cellular level so it's more resilient to the aging process.
Don't take my word for it, ladies, because Mrs. Columbus has tried this and she is very much liking it so far. She says it's not a heavy cream at all. She says it's very light, it absorbs quickly, and she's liking the results. So OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. Get started today with 15% off using code 3ML at oneskin.co. That's 15% off at oneskin.co with the code 3ML. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, so please support your show, the 3 Martini Lunch, and tell them we sent you. All right, Jim, I know once we mentioned it at the open, people will be waiting for the crazy cat lady story, and here we are. This was obviously a issue last year in the campaign when J.D. Vance, I think it was a clip from much further back, referring to certain females on the left as crazy cat ladies, and that became a problem for him for a little while during the campaign. But we've definitely got a case in point here out in the Pacific Northwest. NBC News, I'm still trying to figure out if they're doing this story tongue-in-cheek, Jim, or they're actually serious the way they write this. But it's written by David Lee and Janvi Bojwani, and it says the final days of a Seattle cat were spent in quote-unquote terror due to flyovers by Blue Angels fighter pilots before squadron leaders blocked the feline's human mother on social media in an act of, quote, cowardly censorship, she said, in a lawsuit filed this week. Layla, that's the cat, was 14 when she died on August 11th last year following a battle with heart disease, which was allegedly exacerbated by the Blue Angels flying overhead days and 1 year earlier, according to plaintiff Lauren Ann Lombardi. The Blue Angels, of course, are the U.S. Navy's flight demonstration squadron and have been performing amazing aerobatic maneuvers across the U.S. since 1946. Lombardi had voiced her concerns about the impact of the Blue Angels flying over Seattle online with an expletive-laden tirade. Quote, "Stop with your bleeping bull bleep. You are terrorizing my cat and all the other animals and wildlife," she wrote to the squadron via Instagram August 3rd last year. "Nobody gives a bleep about your stupid little planes." I would disagree with that. Lombardi is a paralegal in Seattle and was then allegedly blocked a short time later. I can't imagine why. She tried to direct message the Blue Angels with a one-word response, "cowards," August 5th last year, quote, which appeared to send but was never delivered due to the blocking, according to the lawsuit penned by attorney Nasim Bushtia, who is married to Lombardi and is listed as Layla the cat's human father in the feline obituary. And when the Blue Angels returned a year later, Layla had just come home from the animal hospital and was in the throes of her final battle with heart disease. Look, I know it's hard to lose a cat, Jim, but the terminology here is a bit over the top, and you can't stop the Blue Angels just because your cat doesn't like it. If we did that every time, an animal freaked out to fireworks or something else, there's a lot that we wouldn't be able to do anymore.
Greg, I find myself wondering how many listeners are listening to your description, and when you get to "stop with your effing bull, you are terrorizing my cat and all the other animals and wildlife," how many listeners are like, "Oh, I know her," in the sense of like every community's got some crazy cat lady who's super obsessed with her cat and believes that her cat's interests, or at least her interpretation of her cat's interests, should outweigh all other interests and all other things going on in the entire world. And I just want to point out, Greg, that this article on NBCnews.com, not MSNBC.com, the network of John Chancellor, Tom Brokaw, Tim Russert, and yes, Brian Williams. But anyway, it took two reporters to write this article, not team coverage of the crazy cat lady up in Seattle who wants the Blue Angels to shut down because it bothered her cat. The other thing that jumped out at me in this, Greg, which he says that the Blue Angels exacerbated her battle with heart disease. Were the Blue Angels performing inside the cat's heart? And if so, how? Like, I really, heart disease, like diet can have something to do with that. Exercise can have something to do with that. Planes flying around, even if they're noisy, very rarely directly affects your heart. Now, is the cat bothered by it? I suppose. All right, Blue Angels are loud, but like where you live in Seattle, if it's near where the Blue Angels do their flight shows, you can move. It's not up for the rest of the world to alter their behavior because of what your cat likes and doesn't like. And then finally, when you list yourself as the human father of a cat, Greg, that should be mandatory. You have to go back to biology, right? You clearly, you did not pass that class. That doesn't work that way. I hope you're not trying, right? You are not the father of that cat. And I say this recognizing, and I've had other podcast co-hosts tell me I'm crazy for this. Look, pets are wonderful. Pets can bring enormous amounts of joy to our lives, and it's great. And one of the reasons I was reticent to get a dog for a lot of years was because everybody I know who's ever lost a dog, they do feel like a member of the family, and they're just crushed by it, and they just don't. So, like, I get that level of closeness. That does not make you the cat's mother or father. And as a parent, I don't love the idea of pet owners believing that, me cleaning out the litter box is totally the same as changing diapers for a bunch of years and everything involved in raising a child from birth all the way to the point where they leave the house. And yes, we're getting very close to that in the Garrity household, and it's kind of freaking me out. So like, this is like, like your cat. No, I'm sure walking your dog is challenging. I've had dogs in the past. I understand. Scooping it up with a little plastic bag. That is a very challenging thing. But you know what? That's not, very rarely is your dog crying in the middle of the night, coming up and spitting up on you. All right. That's just not the same. And I really don't like this hijacking of the term parent. No, you are the pet's owner. An owner controls responsibility. It's a very important role, but it's not a parent. And on behalf of parents everywhere, stop stealing our terminology. Oh, by the way, I have a feeling this ties into the fertility rates and the decline in the birth rate and the difficulty of forming more traditional families. Look, if you love your pet, wonderful, great. But to quote Janine Garofalo, probably not someone who you expected to see or hear quoted on this podcast, it's okay to love your pet. Just don't love your pet.
The way you laid that out, Jim, it just has me on the set of the Maury Povich show now saying, Ms. Lombardi, you are not the mother. Mr. Bushtia, you are not the father.
Yes.
So,
yeah. The father, it turns out, was Garfield. Who was the cat in the cat food commercials?
Morris.
Morris. Yeah, okay. Morris sounds male as well. Cat, so I don't know. Maybe there's a question of who the father of that cat is, but feline paternity tests up after the break.
On the next Maury Povich show. Jim, quite a way to start the week. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks so much for being with us today. Please be sure to subscribe to the 3 Martini Lunch if you don't already. Tell your friends about us as well. Thanks also for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. They're a huge help. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. Follow us both on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Greg Corombos. Have a terrific Monday. Join us again Tuesday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.